Hello and welcome to this Wednesday edition of the World Report. I am Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. Let's take a look at what's making headlines around the world. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has started a two-day visit to India as he landed in Mumbai this morning. Now, viewers, Starmer was joined by over 125 leaders from the business, culture and university sectors in an effort to, in fact, promote a recently signed trade deal, the Free Trade Agreement. To be precise, that was in fact signed by New Delhi and London just months ago. Now, Starmer is also expected to hold wide-ranging talks with PM Modi in Mumbai on Thursday. That's scheduled for tomorrow. Now, on the other hand, he's ruled out including visas in talks with India currently. Now, Starmer confirmed that visa issues would not be on the agenda during this trip. My colleague Saurabh, meanwhile, spoke to the London Deputy Mayor. Listening.
It's a very important year for the UK-India partnership. An FTA has been signed and much more is on the anvil. Taking this partnership forward has been the effort of both the governments of the United Kingdom and the government of India. And the British Prime Minister is also expected to be in Mumbai. Joining me now is Howard Dubber, Deputy Mayor of London for Business, Order of the British Empire. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here in Mumbai. This has been an important year for the UK-India partnership. We've had the FTA, but it's also been a year of global uncertainties. What do you think is, of course, going forward? What do you expect in the coming year? And how is this relationship between the UK and India likely to strengthen in a year full of uncertainties?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me on. Look, the relationship between UK and India, as we all know, goes back for many, many centuries, and particularly over the last 20, 30 years has been very strong in the face of an increasingly divided and complicated world. And in these times of global uncertainties and geopolitical change, that strong relationship has never been more important, which is why that free trade agreement signed between our two governments has provided a platform for real future economic growth and collaboration. And I'm very pleased that my friend Sir Keir Starmer will be here later this week here in Mumbai. This is really an opportunity for growing new businesses, new collaborations, and for UK and India to work together to sell our great products and services to the world.
The Mayor of London launched this campaign, London is Open. That is something that really welcomed a lot of Indian businesses, students to the UK, to London specifically. But in the light of recent events, protests against immigrants, that has kind of left a lot of people worried, and they have concerns about whether London is really open and whether the UK is really open. How would you address those concerns?
Well, I would say that the people have got legitimate concerns about immigration and how immigration affects them. But in London, the vast majority of citizens are supportive of our amazing, diverse and an international community with people who not just come from over the world, but who for decades and for generations have made their life in London. We've got over 500,000 people of Indian origin or Indian family background in London. It's a massive part of our city. Obviously, our mayor is of Pakistani origin. My predecessor as deputy mayor was of Indian origin. In fact, I am 1/16th because my great-grandfather, my mum's grandfather, was born in Ahmednagar, just up the road from here. So I'm partly Maharashtri. London is absolutely open to the world, and the vast majority of people in London are very, very supportive and welcoming of people from all over. And our universities, with our 200,000 international students, the most international students of anywhere in the world, are absolutely very, very keen on having more students from India, because they bring not only the cultural diversity, but they bring their brain power, and 20% of them stay on to start businesses or to work in London, and that's hugely important for our city.
As day two of indirect talks between Israeli and Hamas negotiators concluded in Egypt's port city of Sharm el-Sheikh, US President Donald Trump has once again, in fact, expressed optimism, saying that there's a real chance to end the war in Gaza. Now, Trump's comments come as Special Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff, or as the Middle East hawk he's known as, and Jared Kushner are en route. In fact, they have reached Egypt as we speak for discussions on ending the war in Gaza. And that's not it. Senior administration officials say that they will not leave, that's Witkoff and Kushner, until an agreement is very well reached. Meanwhile, there were reported progress on day two of the Hamas and Israel indirect talks in the port city of Egypt, but no breakthrough has yet been achieved. Meanwhile, a latest 8 flotilla bound for the Gaza Strip was blocked by the Israeli military early Wednesday, and the activists on board, well, they were detained again. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition said a group of 8 boats seeking to break Israel's blockade on the Palestinian territory had in fact been intercepted and also boarded in international waters. The Israeli Foreign Ministry has confirmed the operation and has added that the vessels would be taken to an Israeli port. Now, this follows, viewers, the interception of a larger flotilla on the 2nd of October. Dozens of demonstrators staged a sit-in outside the US Embassy in Tunis on Tuesday, calling for the expulsion of American ambassador and legislation to criminalize normalization with Israel. Now, the protest that was organized by pro-Palestinian advocacy groups unfolded in front of a heavy security presence at that. Demonstrators set up tents, waved Palestinian flags, and held signs that read, "Stop the genocidal war in Gaza," as you see right there on your screen, and "Criminalize normalization if you are sincere." Meanwhile, others carried placards bearing images of Palestinian leaders and also chanted slogans accusing Washington of supporting what they term a genocide in Gaza. We get you more.
شعب فلسطين نفسه الذي أبى أن يستسلم وقاوم وقدم الشهداء ولم يتوقف عن المقاومة، وهذا الشعب إذن هو الواجهة الأمامية لهذه النهضة العالمية، لأننا نرى اليوم أن هناك تحرك ونهضة عالمية وتطور في الفكر السياسي العالمي المناهض لحركة معادية للإنسان وهي الحركة الصهيونية.
Meanwhile, over at the White House, back at the White House, rather, President Donald Trump hailed his Canadian counterpart, PM Mark Carney, as a world-class leader on Tuesday, and also quipped trade talks with Canada lack because he wants to be quote-unquote great as well. Now, the American president said of Carney, he's a great prime minister. I mean, he could represent me anytime. But then Trump added he could be very nasty, maybe as nasty as anybody. When asked, in fact, by a reporter right after making this statement, what is that it's holding up trade talks with Carney if he's such a great man, to which Donald Trump replied, because I want to be a great man as well. Now, let's take a look at that viral exchange followed by my colleague Maha Siddiqui, who gets us the latest from Canada's Vancouver.
I think Canada, let me put it this way, I can tell you this, because I deal with lots of leaders all over the world. He is a world-class leader. He's a man that knows what he wants, and I'm not surprised to see that he won the election and won it substantially, and I would think he's more popular now. He's a good man. He does a great job, and he's a tough negotiator.
So then what's holding things up? If he's a great man and you want to do a deal with Canada, why aren't you?
Because I want to be a great man, too. Thank you very much. Thank you. That could have been good. That could have been good. That could have been good. Thank you very much.
After months of friction in the Canada-US ties, there was a glimmer of positivity as Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney made his second visit to the White House to meet US President Donald Trump and discuss trade. Even though there was no immediate breakthrough, the officials of the two sides will continue the talks, and for that, the US-Canada Minister in Charge from Canada, Dominique LeBlanc, has stayed back in Washington, D.C. to continue discussions on two critical sectors, aluminum and steel, on which there is a punishing 50% tariff by the US administration, leading to job losses in Canada, and a 10% tariff on the energy sector that is also under discussion. Now, US President Donald Trump said that there was a natural conflict between US and Canada over trade, by which he means that both sides have competing business interests, and that is why the negotiations are more difficult between the two sides. This was acknowledged by Mark Carney as well, and a specific case in point here is the auto sector. President Trump said that US would like to manufacture more cars and that he wishes well for Canada as well. This tone down in US President Donald Trump's demeanor on the auto sector, which has been slapped with a 25% tariff, is largely because of the understanding of the complex and the interconnected supply chain in North America as far as the auto sector is concerned. And this is the reason that the top 3 auto manufacturers in the United States, General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, had gone to the Trump administration initially itself for a carve-out because they feared that any tariff on Canada will hit the entire supply chain, leading to a rise in production costs. And even if the companies absorb some cost, part of it will be transferred to the consumers, which again does not augur well because then sales would be impacted.
Russia reported advances on all Ukrainian fronts on Monday as Ukraine attempted to attack Russia's Novorossiysk nuclear power plant. The Russian army, meanwhile, took control of one settlement each in Donetsk and the Zaporizhzhia areas and also carried out strikes on energy and transportation facilities, fuel depots and temporary deployment points of Ukrainian armed forces and foreign mercenaries in 148 regions across the Russian mainland on Monday. Now, they also intercepted 416 fixed-wing drones, Russian Defense Ministry said on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Russia's Supreme Commander-in-Chief Valery Gershimov said on Tuesday that Russian troops were advancing in all directions, while Ukrainian army tried to stabilize the situation on the front line and delay the Russian offensive. Over in the Middle East, Syria's Chief of Defense Authorities said on Tuesday that he had met with the commander of the Kurdish-led forces, Mazloum Abdi, in Damascus, and in fact, the duo has agreed to an immediate ceasefire across all the fronts in northern and northeastern parts of the country. Now, this meeting very interestingly comes following a recent spate of clashes between troops loyal to the Syrian interim authorities and the Kurdish-led troops which control large swathes of northern and eastern Syria. Now, in a brief statement, Maraf Abu Kasra, Chief of Defense Authorities, said that the meeting resulted in a, quote, comprehensive ceasefire covering all axes and deployment points in northern and northeastern Syria to be implemented immediately. We shift our focus to Texas, where the National Guard troops settled in an army center near Chicago National Guard. Members, in fact, from Texas were getting settled at an Army Reserve Center in Illinois on Tuesday. Now, it's the most visible sign yet of Trump administration's plan to send troops to Chicago now, despite a lawsuit and vigorous opposition from democratically elected leaders. Illinois Governor, meanwhile, J.B. Pritzker, who has accused President Donald Trump of using troops as political props and also pawns, he said he did not get a heads up from Washington. Meanwhile, military personnel in uniforms were seen with the Texas National Guard patch at U.S. Army Reserve Center in Elwood, just 69 kilometers southwest of Chicago. In Latin America, El Salvador's Civil Protection Agency had raised the country's alert level from yellow to orange due to torrential rains that have in fact been battering the country for 5 continuous days, killing at least 1 person. A woman died Tuesday when a modest home collapsed following heavy rains that have in fact triggered landslides, fallen trees, and flooded off streets and highways. The Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources maintains surveillance over a low-pressure system located in the Pacific Ocean and another one, by the way, in the Atlantic that could bring in more rain. Civil Protection Director Luis Alonso Amaya said that 180 shelters, meanwhile, have been set up and strategically distributed throughout the country, mostly in areas at greatest risk. Over in Spain, a building under renovation in central Madrid partially collapsed on Tuesday, injuring 3 construction workers and leaving 4 others missing. Now, emergency services continue searching for the missing workers, according to central government official Francisco Martin. Now, one of the injured workers was being treated at a hospital for a leg fracture. Emergency services spokeswoman Beatrice Martin said. Firefighters said that several floors of the 5-story building had collapsed. Police were also at the scene, as well as rescue teams with search dogs. Cameroon's 92-year-old President Paul Biya appeared Tuesday at his campaign rally for the upcoming election, in which the world's oldest head of state, that's right, the world's oldest head of state at 92 years of age, is seeking his 8th term. Addressing a crowd of supporters at the stadium in far north town of Marua, Biya promised to step up security in the region plagued by extremist attacks, curb youth unemployment, and also improve road infrastructure and social amenities if he is indeed re-elected in Sunday's vote for a record 8th term. The far north region is a majority Muslim and one of Cameroon's poorest areas. It has in fact also been plagued by constant attacks and kidnappings for ransom by the extremist group Boko Haram. The outing was Biya's first in a campaign from which he has in fact been noticeably absent, and he only recently returned from a week-long stay in Switzerland. Well, it's time we step into a short break. With this much more lined up on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, viewers. You're watching the Wednesday edition of the World Report with me, Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. Now we get you updates from the world of business, where Wall Street's record-breaking rally ran out of momentum on Tuesday. This came after the price of gold topped $4,000 per ounce. By the way, an ounce is 28 grams, for your perspective, for the first time ever. The S&P 500, meanwhile, dipped 0.4% points from its latest all-time high and broke a 7-day winning streak. The Dow Jones, meanwhile, industrial average fell 91 points, or 0.2 percentage points, and the Nasdaq Composite sank a further 0.7 percentage points. Meanwhile, stock took a pause following a nearly relentless rush since April on hopes that the economy will remain resilient and that the Federal Reserve will continue to cut interest rates. Many of the world's leading digital artists are pushing the boundaries of visual and speed in a new exhibit called Submerge Beyond the Render at Arctic House in New York City. Now, the exhibit brings together 15 digital artists in a giant state-of-the-art warehouse filled with screens and projectors displaying immersive works that represent a new digital form of storytelling. Now, some of the visual visitors will see in-floor-to-ceiling space, including realistic landscapes, surreal XR dreamscapes, and even large-scale concert environments, all brought to life in 18K resolution. The World Trade Organization is sharply raising its forecast for trade growth in goods this year. Now, the move comes after an unexpectedly strong first half due to rising AI-related purchases, front-loaded imports in the US over tariff fears, and of course, robust developing world trade. The Geneva-based trade body said Tuesday its economists are increasing their prediction of growth in merchandise trade to 2.4% this year, up 0.9 percentage points as recently as August 2025. Meanwhile, in April, the WTO experts were actually anticipating a decline in goods trade this year to the tune of 0.2 percentage points. However, they're lowering the prediction for 2026 to 0.5 percentage points from 1.8 percentage points. The growth of export and services, meanwhile, is expected to come in at 4.6% in 2025 and 4.4% next year, both slower rates than the 6.8% tallied in 2024. In the world of sports, former Liverpool midfielder Steven Gerrard has said that England's golden generation has failed to live up to their potential because they were egotistical losers who fostered an unfriendly environment and were unable to work together. In the 2000s, big things were expected from an England squad that including the likes of Steven Gerrard, David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Rio Ferdinand and Frank Lampard. However, the team never progressed past the quarterfinals at any major tournament. The UFC has announced that former featherweight and lightweight champion Conor McGregor has accepted an 18-month sanction for a violation of anti-doping policy. Now, in a statement on their website, the MMA promotion said the MMA promoter, in fact, said that McGregor missed 3 attempts by Combat Sports Anti-Doping to collect biological samples from him in 2024 on the 13th of June, the 19th of September, and the 20th of September, leading to a so-called whereabouts failure. Anne Hathaway, Stanley Tucci and Emily Blunt were spotted on Tuesday in the streets of Milan filming The Devil Wears Prada sequel. Now, the cast was also spotted in Italy during Dolce & Gabbana's fashion show at the end of September, where Meryl Streep and Stanley Tucci entered the venue in character. The Dolce & Gabbana press office confirmed that the scene was to be included in the sequel. Now, The Devil Wears Prada 2 is out next spring. Hollywood Boulevard was bathed in red light on Monday for the US premiere of sci-fi sequel Tron Ares. The city's famous Chinese theater hosted stars including Jared Leto, Jodie Turner-Smith, Evan Peters, Gillian Anderson and Greta Lee, who walked the red carpet alongside iconic actor Jeff Bridges that in fact led the 1982 original. Bridges returned for the 3rd film in the franchise, reprising the role of Kevin Flynn, who happens to be a computer designer who is sucked into a virtual world called the Grid. Why is he sucked into the Grid? Well, to battle an artificial intelligence intent on destroying all sentient life forms. Listen.
He's been involved for 43 years, so 9 years is nothing. But, you know, there was a version of a script that was floating around like 10 years ago. And I read it, and they asked me to be in it to play this part called Ares. And it wasn't the right thing for me at the time, but I said to them, if you ever want to make a film about this character, let me know, I'd be interested. So like a year later, they came to me and they said, what do you think about developing this? I was like, absolutely, I love Tron. And so for the past 9 years, we've just been pushing the boulder up the hill. And here we are screaming at each other with some amazing music playing in the background.